stories around the world to stories here at home. This is the National News Broadcast. A pleasant evening. I'm Vilanjali Ananda.
Good evening, I'm Lakshit Singha, and to start off, we take a look at the headlines for tonight.
A 5,000 rupees worth allowance for the income-deprived people in Gampaha due to the prevailing curfew. 3 villagers in Matugama have been isolated. A total of 3,403 COVID-19 infected patients have recovered. A Sri Lankan-born woman elected to the New Zealand Parliament.
For those and other stories in detail, we begin with news from home. The government has planned to distribute 5,000 rupees worth relief allowance for the people in Gampaha district who are deprived of a livelihood due to the quarantine curfew. Under the first phase, the distribution of 5,000 rupee worth relief allowance will be conducted from Tuesday onward. Minister Prasanna Ranatunga has said that funds worth 40 million rupees have been allocated in this regard. The Minister of Finance has taken steps to allocate this fund with the special intervention of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and Head of Presidential Task Force for Economic Revival and Poverty Eradication, Basil Rajapaksa. Under the first phase of the initiative, the relief allowance will be provided to 72,345 families in curfew-imposed and movement-restricted 5 villages and Minuwangoda, Divulapitiya, Attanagala and Mirigama Divisional Secretariat Divisions. Gampaha District Secretary Sunil Jalat has said that the relief allowance will be distributed to people in the other curfew-imposed 16 police jurisdictions in Gampaha District under the second phase. Meanwhile, Minister Prasanna Ranatunga instructed relevant authorities yesterday to take swift measures in distributing the Samurdil Elders Allowance and Public Welfare Allowance in the curfew-imposed areas in Gampaha District. The Minister directed these instructions during a meeting held at the Gampaha District Secretariat.
The Government Information Department has announced that the villagers Ovitigala, Badugama and Badugama Navajanapadaya in the Matugama Divisional Secretariat Divisions have been declared as isolated villagers. Meanwhile, a total of 3,403 infected patients have completely recovered from COVID-19. A total of 61 infected patients have been detected from the Divulapitiya COVID-19 cluster today. Accordingly, the tally of the Divulapitiya cluster has increased up to 2,075. Meanwhile, a total of 3,403 infected patients have recovered from the disease. The percentage is at 61.47. The percentage of the patients undergoing treatment is at 38.29 at present. Matugama Public Health Inspector Lionel Gametige said that 17 persons in Matugama area currently directed to quarantine have been infected with COVID-19. Reports have indicated that the newly detected patients had travelled to Anuradhapura with the recently identified COVID-19 patients from the same area. Meanwhile, the Government Information Department has announced measures have been taken to isolate 3 villages in Matugama Divisional Secretariat Division. The villagers Ovitigala Badugama and Badugama Navajanapadaya have been declared as isolated. Restrictions on movement for 4 villages have been enforced following the detection of several COVID-19 patients from Kuliyapiti area. The restriction on movement were imposed for Galyala, Urupitiya, Ennarua and Pallevila villages. Kahatuduwa Medical Health Office has informed that 2 employees of a private bank in Vellavatta and their mothers have been infected with COVID-19. Another COVID-19 patient was detected from the same bank on a previous occasion. Reports have indicated that the employees of the bank have been infected with the disease following a visit of a coronavirus patient to the bank. Accordingly, 40 close contacts of the newly identified patients have been directed to quarantine and the PCR tests are expected to be conducted on them tomorrow. Nursing officer of a factory in Kahatuduwa has been infected with the coronavirus. Reports have indicated that the brother of the nursing officer has also been infected with COVID-19. The nursing officer has participated in a wedding ceremony in Divulapitiya area recently. Sri Lanka Ports Authority has dismissed the reports on the closure of a part of the Colombo port and claimed that the reports are baseless. Operations of all terminals belonging to the authority and activities of the other units continue to function without a hindrance. Individuals and vehicles entering the port premises have been directed for an inspection according to the health guidelines. Meanwhile, the Government Information Department and the Ministry of Mass Media were disinfected today with the intent to safeguard the staff, media personnel, ministers and other relevant entities visiting these premises. The disinfection process was carried out in accordance to a request made by the Directorate General of the Government Information Department, Nalaka Kalueva. Necessary steps have been taken to conduct the proceedings of the department around the clock. State Minister D.V. Chanaka has said that more than 15,000 PCR tests have been conducted for the institutes functioning under the Board of Investments. The minister has further indicated that the attention of the Ministry of Aviation and Development of Export Zones to continuously engage in the production process while maintaining the employee protection. The curfew imposed in 19 police jurisdictions in Gampaha will remain in effect until further notice. The public transportation has been allowed to move across the curfew-imposed areas. However, the public transport has only been allowed to load and unload the students facing the GCE advanced level examination in the curfew-imposed areas. Outlets in the curfew-imposed areas were remained closed today. Police operations are underway to apprehend curfew violators in these areas.
Sri Lanka Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva says that all necessary facilities have been provided in quarantine centres. The Sri Lanka Army Commander made these observations during an inquiry over the inconveniences experienced by the people directed to quarantine. With the global spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, which began in Wuhan city, Sri Lankans too had to battle against the outbreak in the country. Since a vaccine is yet to be discovered for the disease, the best solution in combating the pandemic is to mitigate the spread of the outbreak. Accordingly, quarantining of the close contacts of the infected patients is compulsory. The majority of the duties in the quarantine process have been vested with the public health officers. Therefore, the assistance directed by the Sri Lanka Army for the public health officers to carry out their duties is a great relief. Accordingly, Sri Lanka Army established the first ever quarantine centre in Diatalava Army Camp at a time when no patient was reported in the country. Also, base camps of Sri Lanka Army, Navy and Air Force were also transformed into quarantine centres equipped with all necessary facilities. A total of 53,937 infected patients have left the quarantine centres maintained by the Triforces after completely recovering from COVID-19 thus far. Meanwhile, a total of 9,386 infected patients are currently quarantining in 82 quarantine centres at present. The quarantine process has become complex with the increase of the infected patients in the Divulapitia COVID-19 cluster. However, some individuals have resorted to social media platforms to allege that the residents of the quarantine centres have not received necessary facilities.
Criminal Investigation Department has apprehended a 43-year-old woman who had released a video with hate content to instigate a friction between religious communities of Buddhism and Christianity to social media platforms today. Police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana said that the suspect, who was taken into custody from Battaramulla area, will be produced before the Colombo Fort Chief Magistrate tomorrow. Police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana said that the video with hate content released to social media platforms can be observed as an alleged attempt taken to instigate a friction between Buddhist and Christian religious communities. He added that the suspect was taken into custody based on these evidences. He further said that the public has been continuously informed to refrain from making a statement which could instigate hatred, rage and disharmony among religious factions. He said that necessary legal action will be taken against such offenders for publicizing such statements.
Health Minister Pavitravani Arachi says that the officers of the task force to eradicate dengue will be recruited to the state service. She made these remarks while taking part in the opening ceremony of the National Dengue Prevention Week. The ceremony was held in Kuruvita, Ratnapura. The director and the officials of the dengue prevention unit were present at this occasion. Minister Pavitravani Arachi said that a total of 34 persons have died from dengue this year. She said that the government is in the process of taking measures to absorb the services of the task force to eradicate dengue into the state services. She further said that a cabinet proposal has been presented to extend the services of the officials. She said that the services of the task force is commendable.
අපි යම් විධානයක් නියෝගයක් දුන්නම් ඒක ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා මම බොහෝම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා සියලුම රාජ්‍ය සේවයට. මම හිතන්නේ පහුගිය මාස IMP HI මහතුරුන්ට OT ලැබිලා නැහැනේ. ඩෙන්ගු කාලේ වැඩ කරපුවට දෙනවා කිව්ව දීමනා ලැබුණෙත් නැහැ. ඒකට ඒ නිසා මධ්‍යම රජයෙන් පළාත් සභාවට
Sri Lankan-born human rights lawyer in New Zealand, Vanushi Walters, has won the race to be Upper Harbour MP in Northwest Auckland at the New Zealand's general election. She is the first Sri Lankan-born member of New Zealand's parliament. Walters claimed a narrow victory over national candidate Jake Besant, a former tech company chief executive and cricketer for Hamilton, receiving 14,142 votes to Besant's 12,727. She is taking over from the retiring National MP Paula Bennett. During the campaign, Walters, a board member of Amnesty International, said she was passionate about the electorate because of its diverse and warm communities. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern won a landslide victory in New Zealand's general election Saturday, leveraging success battling COVID-19 to gain an unprecedented outright majority and the chance to implement her reform agenda. The new Labour Party caucus is far more representative of contemporary New Zealand than national, says a Massey University sociologist, with more than half of Labour's 64 MPs being women, while having 15 Maori MPs, 1 in 6 MPs a Pacifica and a good mix of other ethnicities. The Sri Lankan New Zealander is a lawyer and advocate with national and international experience.
A cache of 200 kilograms of Kerala cannabis was taken into custody by the security authorities. The cache was apprehended during a joint operation conducted by Sri Lankan Navy and the police Oluthudavai area, Mannar today. The cache of Kerala cannabis, which was prepared to be distributed from the Oluthudavai coast, was taken into custody during a special operation jointly conducted by the North Central Naval Command and the Anti-Corruption Unit of Mannar Police Division. The cache, which was consisted of 94 parcels, was weighed around 200 kilograms and 825 grams. Search operations are underway in the area to apprehend the relevant suspects. The cache has been handed over to the Mannar Police within the COVID-19 prevention protective measures.
Senior Superintendent of Police Roshan Rajapaksa has been appointed as the Director of the Police Environmental Protection Division and Special Tasks of the Presidential Secretariat. SSP Roshan Rajapaksa is an experienced officer in the fields of public relations, environmental beautification and environmental protection affairs. Presently, he is rendering his duties as the Director of the Police Environmental Protection and Archaeological Division. And that's all the stories for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at the very same time. Good night.
Good night.